Recap of Chapter 32. Mrs. Dean is called back to Wuthering Heights after Zillah leaves. This already improves Cathy's life as she smuggles in Cathy's books from Thrushcross Grange. She is now bored out of her wits and seeks Hareton's company, who spurns her for some time, no matter what she does. She begs for his forgiveness for having mocked him and gives him one of her books as a gift. She even plants a kiss on his cheek when he refused to shake her hand. Hareton could not ignore such attention for too long, starved as they both were for civil company. It took them no time to grow intimate, and Mrs. Dean wishes to see them happily married. This story Mrs. Dean narrates to Mr. Lockwood when he desires to visit Grange and the Heights while he was passing from close by. He wanted to conduct a business with Heathclif, but was informed that he died, and the business would have to be conducted with Mrs. Linton Heathclif. But since she does not yet manage her affairs well, it will have to be with Mrs. Dean herself. Mrs. Dean reminds Lockwood that it was easy to gain Cathy's attachment, but she was even more happy with how things turned out. We still don't know how Heathcliff died, except that he had grown recluse and disinclined to society in his last days. Chapter 33. Wuthering Heights. On the morrow of that Monday, Earnshaw being still unable to follow his ordinary employments, and therefore remaining about the house, I speedily found it would be impractical to retain my charge beside me as heretofore. She got downstairs before me and out into the garden, where she had seen her cousin performing some easy work, and when I went to bid them to come to breakfast, I saw she had persuaded him to clear a large space of ground from currant and gooseberry bushes, and they were busy planning together an importation of plants from the Grange. I was terrified at the devastation which had been accomplished in a brief half hour. The black-currant trees were the apple of Joseph's eye, and she had just fixed her choice of a flower-bed in the midst of them. "There, that will be shown to the master," I exclaimed, "the minute it is discovered. And what excuse have you to offer for taking such liberties with a garden? We shall have a fine explosion on the head of it. See if we don't. Mr. Hareton, I wonder you should have no more wit than to go and make that mess at her bidding." "I'd forgotten they were Joseph's," answered Earnshaw, rather puzzled. "But I'll tell him I did it." We always ate our meals with Mr. Heathcliff. I held the mistress's post in making tea and carvings, so I was indispensable at the table. Catherine usually sat by me, but today she stole nearer to Hareton, and I presently saw she would have no more discretion in her friendship than she had in her hostility. "Now, mind you don't talk with and notice your cousin too much," were my whispered instructions as we entered the room. "It will certainly annoy Mr. Heathcliff, and he'll be mad at you both." "I'm not going to," she answered. The minute after, she had sidled to him and was sticking primroses in his plate of porridge. He dared not speak to her there, he dared hardly look, and yet she went on teasing till he was twice on the point of being provoked to laugh. And I frowned, and then she glanced towards the master, whose mind was occupied on other subjects than his company, as his countenance evinced, and she grew serious for an instant, scrutinizing him with deep gravity. Afterwards she turned and recommenced her nonsense. At last Hareton uttered a smothered laugh. Mr. Heathcliff started. His eye rapidly surveyed our faces. Catherine met it with her accustomed look of nervousness and yet defiance which he abhorred. "It is well you are out of my reach," he claimed. "What fiend possessed you to stare back at me continually with those infernal eyes? Down with them, and don't remind me of your existence again. I thought I had cured you of laughing." "It was me," muttered Hareton. "What do you say?" demanded the master. Hareton looked at his plate and did not repeat the confession. Mr. Heathcliff looked at him a bit, and then silently resumed his breakfast and his interrupted musings. We had nearly finished, and the two young people prudently shifted wider asunder, so I anticipated no further disturbance during that sitting, when Joseph appeared at the door, revealing by his quivering lip and furious eyes that the outrage committed on his precious shrubs were detected. He must have seen Cathy and her cousin about the spot before he examined it, for while his jaws worked like those of a cow chewing its cud and rendered his speech difficult to understand, he began. I mun have my wage, I mun go. I had aimed to thee where I'd served for 60 years, and I thought I'd lug my books and interrupt Garrett and all my bits and stuff on their third head kitchen that themselves for the sake of quietness. It were hard to give up my or hurt some, but I thought I would could do that. But nah, should stand my garden for me, and by the heart, Meister, I cannot stand it. On my bend the yoke and evil, our none used to it, and our old man doesn't soon get used to new buttons. I'd rather of my bite, of my sup, with a hammer in the road. Now, idiot, interrupted Heathcliff, cut it short. What's your grievance? I'll interfere in no quarrels between you and Nellie. She may thrust you into the coal hole for anything I care. It's no Nilly, answered Joseph. I shouldn't shift for Nilly. Nasty, now she is, thank God she cannot steal so a nobody. She was never so handsome, but when a body might look at her bar winking, it's your flaysome, graceless queen. It's which a lad with a bowl in her forrard for ways name till nay. It fair burst my heart. He's forgotten all he done for him, on made on him, on gone on driven up an old now not grandest currant trees at that garden, and here he lamented outright, unmanned by a sense of his bitter injuries and Earnshaw's ingratitude and dangerous condition. Is the fool drunk? Asked Mr. Heathcliff. Hareton, is it you he's finding fault with? I pulled up 2 or 3 bushes, replied the young man, but I am going to set them again. And why have you pulled them out? Said the master. Catherine wisely put in her tongue. We wanted to plant some flowers there, she cried. I am the only person to blame, for I wished him to do it. And who the devil gave you leave to touch a stick about the place? Demanded her father-in-law, much surprised. And who ordered you to obey her? He added, turning to Hareton. The latter was speechless. His cousin replied, You shouldn't grudge a few yards of earth for me to ornament when you have taken all my land. Your land? Insolent slut! You never had any, said Heathcliff. And my money, she continued, returning his angry glare, and meantime biting a piece of crust, remnant of her breakfast. Silence, he exclaimed. Get done and be gone. And Hareton's land and his money, pursued the reckless thing. Hareton and I are friends now, and I shall tell him all about you. The master seemed confounded a moment. He grew pale and rose up, eyeing her all the while with an expression of mortal hate. If you strike me, Hareton will strike you, she said, so you may as well sit down. If Hareton does not turn you out of the room, I'll strike him to hell, thundered Heathcliff. Damnable witch! Dare you pretend to rouse him against me? Off with her, do you hear? Fling her into the kitchen. I'll kill her, Ellen Dean, if you let her come into my sight again. Hareton tried under his breath to persuade her to go. Drag her away, he cried savagely. Are you staying to talk? And he approached to execute his own command. He'll not obey you, wicked man, any more, said Catherine, and he'll soon detest you as much as I do. Wish, muttered the young man reproachfully. I will not hear you speak so to him. Have done. But you won't let him strike me, she cried. Come then, he whispered earnestly. It was too late. Heathcliff had caught hold of her. Now you go, he said to Earnshaw. Accursed witch, this time she has provoked me, when I could not bear it, and I'll make her repent it forever. He had his hand in her hair. Hareton attempted to release the locks, entreating him not to hurt her that once. His black eyes flashed. He seemed ready to tear Catherine in pieces, and I was just worked up to risk coming to the rescue when of a sudden his fingers relaxed. He shifted his grasp from her head to her arm and gazed intently in her face. Then he drew his hand over his eyes, stood a moment to collect himself apparently, and turning anew to Catherine, said with assumed calmness, "You must learn to avoid putting me in a passion, or I shall really murder you sometime. Go with Mrs. Dean and keep with her. Confine your insolence to her ears. As to Hareton Earnshaw, if I see him listen to you, I'll send him seeking his bread where he can get it. Your love will make him an outcast and a beggar. Nelly, take her and leave me, all of you, leave me." I led my young lady out. She was too glad of her escape to resist. The other followed, and Mr. Heathcliff had the room to himself till dinner. I had counselled Catherine to get hers upstairs, but as soon as he perceived her vacant seat, he sent me to call her. He spoke to none of us, ate very little, and went out directly afterwards, intimating that he should not return before evening. The two new friends established themselves in the house during his absence, where I heard Hareton sternly check his cousin on her offering a revelation of her father-in-law's conduct to his father. He said he wouldn't suffer a word to be uttered to him in his disparagement. If he were the devil, it didn't signify, he would stand by him, and he'd rather she would abuse himself, as she used to, than begin on Mr. Heathcliff. Catherine was waxing cross at this, but he found means to make her hold her tongue by asking how she would like him to speak ill of her father. And then she comprehended that Earnshaw took the master's reputation home to himself, and was attached by ties stronger than reason could break, chains forged by habit which it would be cruel to attempt to loosen. She showed a good heart thenceforth in avoiding both complaints and expressions of antipathy concerning Heathcliff, and confessed to me her sorrow that she had endeavoured to raise a bad spirit between him and Hareton. Indeed, I don't believe she has ever breathed a syllable in the latter's hearing against her oppressor since. When this slight disagreement was over, they were thick again, and as busy as possible in their several occupations of pupil and teacher. I came in to sit with them after I had done my work, and I felt so soothed and comforted to watch them that I did not notice how time got on. You know, they both appeared in a measure my children. I had long been proud of one, and now I was sure the other would be a source of equal satisfaction. His honest, warm, and intelligent nature shook off rapidly the clouds of ignorance and degradation in which it had been bred, and Catherine's sincere commendations acted as a spur to his industry. His brightening mind brightened his features and added spirit of nobility to their aspect. I could hardly fancy it was the same individual I had beheld on the day I discovered my little lady at Wuthering Heights after her expedition to the Craigs. While I admired and they laboured, dusk grew on, and with it returned the master. He came upon us quite unexpectedly, entering by the front way, and had a full view of the whole tree, ere we could raise our heads to glance at him. Well, I reflected, there was never a pleasanter or more harmless sight, and it will be a burning shame to scold them. The red firelight glowed on their two bony heads and revealed their faces, animated with the eager interest of children, for though he was 23 and she 18, Each had so much of novelty to feel and learn that neither experienced nor evinced the sentiments of sober, disenchanted maturity. They lifted their eyes together to encounter Mr. Heathcliff. Perhaps you have never remarked that their eyes are precisely similar, and they are those of Catherine Earnshaw. The present Catherine has no other likeness to her except a breadth of forehead and a certain arch of the nostril which makes her appear rather haughty, whether she will or not. With Hareton, the resemblance is carried further. It is singular at all times, then it was particularly striking, because his senses were alert and his mental faculties wakened to unwonted activity. I suppose this resemblance disarmed Mr. Heathcliff. He walked to the hearth in evident agitation, but it quickly subsided as he looked at the young man, or I should say, altered its character, for it was there yet. He took the book from his hand and glanced at the open page, then returned it without any observation, merely signing Catherine away. Her companion lingered very little behind her, and I was about to depart also, but he bid me sit still. It is a poor conclusion, is it not? He observed, having brooded a while on the scene he had just witnessed. An absurd termination to my violent exertions. I get levers and mattocks to demolish the two houses, and train myself to be capable of working like Hercules, and when everything is ready and in my power, I find the will to lift a slate off either roof has vanished. My old enemies have not beaten me. Now would be the precise time to revenge myself on their representatives. I could do it, and none could hinder me. But where is the use? I don't care for striking. I can't take the trouble to raise my hand. That sounds as if I have been laboring the whole time only to exhibit a fine trait of magnanimity. It is far from being the case. I have lost the faculty of enjoying their destruction, and I am too idle to destroy for nothing. Nellie, there is a strange change approaching. I am in its shadow at present. I take so little interest in my daily life that I hardly remember to eat and drink. Those two who have left the room are the only objects which retain a distinct material appearance to me, and that appearance causes me pain amounting to agony. About her I won't speak, and I don't desire to think, but I earnestly wished she were invisible. Her presence invokes only maddening sensations. He moves me differently, and yet if I could do it without seeming insane, I'd never seen him again. You'll perhaps think me rather inclined to become so, he added, making an effort to smile, if I had tried to describe the thousand forms of past associations and ideas he awakens or embodies. But you'll not talk of what I tell you, and my mind is so eternally secluded in itself, it is tempting at last to turn it out to another. 5 minutes ago, Hareton seemed a personification of my youth, not a human being. I felt to him in such a variety of ways that it would have been impossible to have accosted him rationally. In the first place, his startling likeness to Catherine connected him fearfully with her. That, however, which you may suppose the most potent to arrest my imagination, is actually the least. For what is not connected with her to me, and what does not recall her? I cannot look down to this floor, but her features are shaped on the flags, in every cloud, in every tree, filling the air at night, and caught by glimpses in every object. By day I am surrounded with her image. The most ordinary faces of men and women, my own features mock me with a resemblance. The entire world is a dreadful recollection of memoranda that she did exist and that I have lost her. Well, Hareton's aspect was the ghost of my immortal love, of my wild endeavors to hold my right, my degradation, my pride, my happiness, and my anguish. But it is frenzy to repeat these thoughts to you. Only it will let you know why, with the reluctance to be always alone, his society is no benefit, rather an aggravation of the constant torment I suffer. And it partly contributes to render me regardless how he and his cousin go on together. I can give them no attention any more. "But what do you mean by a change, Mr. Heathcliff?" I said, alarmed at his manner, though he was neither in danger of losing his senses nor dying. According to my judgment, he was quite strong and healthy, and as to his reason, from childhood he had a delight in dwelling on dark things and entertaining odd fancies. He might have had a momomania on the subject of his departed idol, but on every other point his wits were as sound as mine. "I shall not know that till it comes," he said. "I am only half conscious of it now." "You have no feeling of illness, have you?" I asked. "No, Nelly, I have not," he answered. "Then are you not afraid of death?" I pursued. "Afraid? No," he replied. "I have neither a fear nor presentiment nor a hope of death. Why should I? With my hard constitution and temperate mode of living and unperilous occupations, I ought to and probably shall remain above ground till there is scarcely a black hair on my hair. And yet I cannot continue in this condition. I have to remind myself to breathe, almost to remind my heart to beat, and it is like bending back a stiff spring. It is by compulsion that I do the slightest act not prompted by one thought, and by compulsion that I notice anything alive or dead which is not associated with one universal idea. I have a single wish, and my whole being and faculties are yearning to attain it. They have yearned towards it so long and so unwaveringly that I am convinced it will be reached, and soon, because it has devoured my existence. I am swallowed in the anticipation of its fulfillment. My confessions have not relieved me, but they may account for some otherwise unaccountable phases of humor which I show. Oh God, it is a long fight. I wish it were over." He began to pace the room, muttering terrible things to himself, till I was inclined to believe, as he said Joseph did, that conscience had turned his heart into an earthly hell. I wondered greatly how it would end. Though he seldom before had revealed the state of mind, even by looks, it was his habitual mood. I had no doubt he asserted it himself, but not a soul from his general bearing would have conjectured the fact. "You did not when you saw him, Mr. Lockwood, and at the period of which I speak he was just the same as then, only fonder of continued solitude, and perhaps still more laconic in company." End of chapter 33.